I too am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Verbalonlife.
Now, how are you supposed to deal with racist people in front of their faces? Here, Vivek Ramaswamy got confronted by Coulter, and she was a straight up racist in front of his face, and other people had different opinions about it. Vivek went on the PBD podcast and responded to this to show people why he did what he did. Let's take a look.
So, Coulter, who we've had on the podcast before, Coulter, I think you and her are, on a show together. You're doing something together. And she asked this question. I just want to get your reaction on. Rob, go ahead and play this clip.
That's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity. Somebody who've been fascinated by for a long time.
Can you fast forward to when she says it,
Rob?
Rob?
With on social media, but for the first time we're having
Is it right here?
Live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So, Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I too am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
Just skip.
I love how he took it. Kept a straight face. Let's hear this out.
Over the racism. But first of all, did you know she was? Because it seems like when you guys are starting, there's a little bit of tension. I don't know if there was like pre-getting started where there was tension or not.
Oh, you're pretty good at picking that up, man. So to give you the context here. So I ran this podcast during the presidential campaign. Okay. It was called Truth.
Yeah.
I took some time off after the campaign, and now, getting back in the swing of things. So we relaunched the Truth podcast, just relaunched it officially last week. So, get that up on the ground. We would have good conversations. Right. And I wanted to pick on some people who had poked me a little bit on social media or in other ways to be able to, it's kind of boring to just talk about everybody who agrees with the same thing. Right. But let's get a little bit of tension from the left, from the right. So I'll bring Ann Coulter on because during the campaign, I don't remember what exactly she said, but on numerous instances would comment on different ways in which I might not be quite qualified to be president, right? So let's get her on and have a conversation. And both of us are interested in the theme.
And I love the fact that he's not afraid of talking to anyone, battling ideas. The man is a genius.
Nationalism. I did not expect she would just kick it off right there, get right into the business. And I think it actually made for a really good conversation, believe it or not. Of course, I disagree with hell like her on that being a criteria to be the U.S. president is her description of whether or not you're an Indian. I'm born in the United States. I'm as American as they come. But I thought it actually formed a really strong basis for an honest conversation that we otherwise don't have. Because her view is that in order to actually be a U.S. president, you got to be even more American, right? So you're not fully American if your parents weren't from the United States of America. And in order to trust somebody, the more generations they've been here, let's say you've been here 6 or 7 generations, you have more of what she would call, I think she did call it in the podcast, a security policy. It's like an insurance policy that that if you're going to put somebody in that high office, at least you know that they've really, really soaked up what it means to be American. Now, I disagree with that. I disagree with that because you have people in the 7th generation Americans who are the kids of some, I've known many of these people, grow up in the Upper East Side. Some daughter who lives in Brooklyn thinks she's a hippie, talks about hating this country. Well, I don't think that person's any more American than I am just because my parents happen to have been legal immigrants to this country.
So I got 2 questions for you.
But it made for a good conversation.
I got 2 questions for you with this, okay? On one end, how many people you think are like, if you were to say of the voters block, what percentage of the voter block agrees with her.
So say in the Republican primary,
In the Republican primary to say, you know what,
question.
I'm not going to, even if it's 1%, 2%, 3%, what do you think it is?
So
that's a tough question because a lot of people are just secretly racist. And let's see.
I will tell you this with confidence. It is a lot higher than I believed it was a year ago.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a lot higher than I believe you would think it is too.
Interesting.
Which is why, and I said this on social media, and some people hit me on the left from it. I said I respect her for saying it, even though I disagree. Right. Because at least she has the spine to say in public what many other people, not a majority, not even close to a majority, but a lot of people. She's not alone. She is voicing a view that I think is widespread. And actually, I what the hell? We're here. We're just gonna let loose a little bit. I had somebody text me who had run for position. You guys might know her, Harmeet Dillon. You know Harmeet Dillon?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Harmeet's super cool, so I hope she's fine with me saying this because I think it's important that the public know. We can't just have these conversations behind closed doors, not having them in the open. Said that when she ran for her position of being the chairwoman of the RNC, she had many people tell her the same thing too, which is interesting to me because most of the grassroots was, a lot of the grassroots were with me. A lot of grassroots were with people like Harmeet, but there are people who believe that if you're electing people to positions of leadership, how American you are is a spectrum.
When you were out there campaigning, did anybody face you, confront you, and say, I would totally support you, but you're too brown for me? Did anyone say that?
I had many of those for religion. So I didn't have anybody come up and say that because of, there were people on social media who would make an argument. It wasn't on ethnicity. And
it makes sense because religion, it's hard to vote for somebody who's, I think he's in Islam.
Part of Ann's point too. It's the point that your parents were immigrants to this country. And so you are truly not at the highest level of being American to be president of the United States.
Right.
So we had a number of people that would say that occasionally. A much more common one, though, for people to my face was, I would love to vote for you. It's difficult for me to vote for somebody else because I agree with you more, but I can't do that because you are Hindu. That came up a lot, especially in Iowa.
Even the
Hindu. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
Town hall when we did, somebody asked you, one of the ladies got up and
remember that. I remember
they
that
asked
too.
you the question, and I thought your answer was fantastic.
But I remember her. She was, I was standing on stage. She was standing right there, very thoughtful.
Yes.
I don't think she was in the category of saying I can't vote for
No, she didn't say
She asked a very legitimate question.
She did.
She said, tell me about your faith.
That's right.
Because if you're running for president, I got to know who you are.
Right.
And if your faith is important to you, then in order to know who you are, I got to know your faith. That's different from, I'm telling you though, I will face people in Iowa. There's a pastor in Iowa who wrote an extensive Facebook post. I spent 2 hours with him on the back of a bus talking it through. And he still came out on the other side. He said, if it is God's will for you to be the U.S. president, I will accept it.
Respect.
But I can't vote for you myself because I can't vote for somebody who doesn't share my.
Let me stay on this here. So first of all, if strategically, I don't know if Ann Coulter wants to sell you some product that Sammy Sosa used. I don't know if you're familiar with Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa actually
he whitened the skin. Yeah, the skin whitener.
Sammy Sosa.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
I know
he's a baseball.
He used what Michael Jackson
actually,
did.
if you're interested,
no, this is real. This is a real story. This is not made up.
He got his skin to be lighter, so you can go couple shade, lighter. Rob, I don't know why you're laughing.
Sammy Sosa making Dominicans look bad.
I'm a customer. I'm sorry, but
he was
so by the way, this guy hit 66 home runs and he saved MLB in 1998. Let me go back to the question here with this one here. Okay, what do you think is more extreme? Tell me how your argument is on the other side. So one side, you know what? I don't think America, because back in the days, what was JFK was, Tom, you said Roman Catholic. It was a Roman Catholic where America
those were the headlines when Nixon was running. It's a Roman Catholic.
We're not ready for a Roman Catholic president. Yeah. Okay, and then America said, nah, we're okay with it, right?
We're actually cool with that. Yeah.
Okay, we're actually cool with that. Do you think? Give me which of these are more extreme. So, do you think Ann Coulter's position of saying, no, not only do I want you to be a natural-born citizen, but I also want you to be white, to be a true nationalist, to be a president here? How about the opposite side? What about somebody that wasn't born here but has lived here for 35 years?
Yeah.
Should this person have the right to run for office one day in America? If they've paid their taxes, they've paid their dues, they've lived in America for 35 years, should they have the chance to run for office?
Should they have the chance to run for U.S. president? No. You want to know why? Because the Constitution says so. So if you want to change the Constitution. And would you have 2/3 of this country and 2/3 of the state ratify that? That's a separate conversation.
Right.
But what the Constitution says now is you have to be a natural born citizen.
Sure.
And a natural born citizen, as it's ever been read by courts, as it's ever been read through American history for the last century and a half, is you're born in the United States of America. And so I think the Constitution is a beautiful thing. We don't have to relitigate these questions every generation. Then go with what the Constitution actually says.
If Ann Coulter is watching, maybe Ann Coulter wants to amend the Constitution and say, naturally born white citizen, right?
Yeah. See,
with a skin tone that is, maybe put tears in the skin tone to please Ann Coulter. What do you think? I'm just trying to get some creative ideas here.
Biden's father are all born in America. I would much rather vote for somebody like this than somebody that's family's been here and ain't doing shit.
Well, my opinion is this when it comes down to Vivek, and I told you this last week. I think you know how we were going to the GOP debate? We went to all the debates and we'd watch Vivek and we're like, dude, this guy should crush it tomorrow on the, what do you call it? The polls, right? Yeah. And you'd go, you're like 6.5%, 7.5%. Like, how this guy's not jumping up to 22%, 18%? And you realize because there's a guy in the way of that. Not in the way. He is what majority of Republicans want to run at this year, 2024. And his name is Donald J. Trump. By the way, rightly so. He's earned the right to be the lead dog of 2024. There's no question about it. There's a lot of people that want him to go back and do that. What I'm very curious about, very, very, and by the way, I want to ask the audience this question. Rob, if you want to run a poll for this, is, in my opinion, you know how in NBA or college basketball, a guy skips, like the other day we were with that basketball player that was at the Derby with us, a tall guy, the center for Kansas. I think he left the team to go to Kansas, tall guy, good-looking guy, and we're having a conversation with him. And he said, I think this guy's going to be the number 1 draft pick of next year, Hunter Dickinson. Yeah, shout out to him, really nice guy, 7'2". But so, to me, my opinion of 2028 presidential candidate, number 1 draft pick, 2028 is Vivek Ramaswamy.
I agree 100%.
I'm convinced it's number 1, and in a most curious way of just trying to do case studies, I am so curious to know where, let's just say whether Trump wins or loses. Likely to him running in 2028, I don't think he's going to run in 2028. He wins, okay? He even thinks in Jersey, he said, I think we can win all 50 states is what he said. I don't know if you heard his speech. Yeah. Say he wins. 2028, where's MAGA going to want to go to that can fill that void? I don't know. I think it's going to be what do you think about that? The fact that a lot of that audience,
I will say this is, I understand why the Republican base went for Donald Trump so handily this time around, because it makes all the sense in the world, right? It's not just about policy vision. It's that this guy's actually done it, right? So he's tried and true. And I hadn't done it, right? I'm 38 years old. I'm an entrepreneur. I've lived the American dream. I have a vision that very closely aligns with Donald Trump's America First vision. There's some small differences here and there in the campaign. But this is a guy who rarely in American history do you get this opportunity. It's a once-in-a-century opportunity, actually. The once-in-a-century opportunity in this election is usually you get to measure an incumbent versus somebody who's challenging him, who says, hey, I'm going to do all of these things that I've never done. Mm-hmm. Last time you got it with Grover Cleveland. This time you have it this time around, where you get to say, hey, I've got 4 years of Trump, of action, not words, 4 years of action, and then 4 years of action with Biden. Compare and make your choice. So I think the Republican primary base, in retrospect, it was never going to be anyone other than Donald Trump, because that is a rare and unique opportunity to vote for actual action. Now, MAGA and America First does not end with Donald Trump. In some ways, it didn't begin with Donald Trump. It began in 1776, but Donald Trump revived it. But the question is, who's going to carry that forward? And it's not just going to be the president. It's going to be people all the way from school board to governor to state legislator to city councilman, but also to U.S. president as well. And so I'll tell you this, I'm not one of these guys who makes elaborate plans to say, okay, well, if this happens, then I'm going to do that. And if that doesn't happen, I'm going to do the next thing, because it never goes according to plan anyway. But I'm not going anywhere is what I'll tell you, is we're going to stay.
Vivek 2028.
With this fight for the country, and wherever it leads, I'm going to do it.
I have a technical.
Crazy. Somebody being raised in front of your face. I think politically, Vivek handled it pretty well, because the man is a political figure. He just can't flip on people being racist in your face, especially on a podcast. But what do you think? Comment down below. Did Vivek handle it correctly? Or maybe he should have flipped out and kicked her out the podcast. I think Vivek did a great job handling it. Comment below. Let me know how you feel. And see you on the next video. Peace.
Verbal or life.
And Vivek 2028. Let's go.